lizard people. They're lying to you. And you're like, yeah, I can't even trust the lizard people? This is bullshit.
Leave my property alone. You know, globalisation.
Yeah, I'm against capitalism too,
You just
mate.
stole my flag.
I'm against capitalism too, mate.
Yeah.
Right, so that means when I smoke cones for the whole of humanity. Like the guy trying to date an extreme feminist is like being a Jew trying to date a Nazi, right? Like when they invite you into the shower, you should not go in. You know?
Did Shayne Hunter in fact set up Antifa in Australia?
This funder is actually the government channeling. It's great to be here with you all. This is the story about how I lost myself, not in the cool M&M way, but in the scary North Korean way. I never thought that I would become a member of a cult. I always thought I was the kind of person who wasn't easily led. And my parents were saying, oh Shayne, you're not easily led. But I believe that, probably because I'm easily led. And so what happened is when I was maybe in my early 20s, I was very worried about the Western intervention in Syria. I thought that it could lead to a world war. And after the disasters in Iraq and all the humanitarian issues, I thought, I need to do something. I need to kind of stop this intervention. And I was going around telling all my friends, like, a nuclear war's going to happen. And they were kind of like rolling their eyes at my hysterical fear-mongering. And, but I felt isolated. I felt like I was sitting in an aeroplane and the engine was on fire, and I was turning to the people next to me going, excuse me, have you noticed that the engine is on fire? And they're like, oh mate, I'm trying to watch the in-flight movie, alright, okay? I'm trying to watch Mighty Ducks 2 here, mate. And so I started going to these anti-war rallies in Sydney, and that's when I first got exposed to the radical left. I always knew that communism was an authoritarian failure, but I started hanging around the Anarchist library in Newtown. I was introduced to the ideas of anarchism, which seemed to have your cake and eat it. It was against both the state as well as capitalism. So it seemed like a good option. And the way most sort of conspiracy theories will get you in is that they'll have a little bit of truth and then they'll stack bullshit on top of it. So David Icke, for example, he gets people in by going, oh, the banks, they're lying to you. And you're like, yeah, David, the banks are lying to us, yeah. And then he'll go, the government, man, they're lying to you. And you'll be like, yeah, the government is lying to us, yeah. And then he'll be like, the lizard people, they're lying to you. And you're like, yeah, I can't even trust the lizard people? This is bullshit. I thought I could trust the lizards. But, and so this anarchist ideology could explain some of the situations that I was in, because they point to some things that are real. For example, the whole feminist narrative. There is some truth into some of the stuff they say. It is true that women probably get pressured more into sex than men on average, at least if you're me. But, and I think it's wrong to do that. Like, imagine trying to pressure someone into a game of chess. You're like, oh, hi honey, welcome home. Would you like to play a game of chess tonight? She's like, no thanks, had a big day, just want to watch a movie, thank you. And then like halfway through that movie, you got like a bishop in your hand, like, oh, what about a game of chess now, sweetheart? You feeling chessy? And she's like, no thank you, you already told you just want to watch the movie. And then you're like, well, what about a game of checkers? And she's like, no, because checkers always leads to chess. I don't want to play checkers or chess. And then you're like, well, would you like to watch me play a game of chess by myself? And then you go into the bathroom and you play chess against the computer. You got to go to like 7 different chess sites before you find the right chess game. And then you come out and you got the nerve to complain, going, how come we don't play more chess, baby? When we first got together, we couldn't wait to play chess. And she's like, well, if you didn't always checkmate me in 3 fucking moves, dickhead. Alright? How about you let my pieces get to the end of the board once in a while? So there's definitely things that these feminists and anarchists and socialists can point at as examples of the way that certain groups are maybe disadvantaged. But the problem is it's not the whole story. For example, men have a higher suicide rate than women. And feminists will quickly point out, they'll go, yeah, but women will attempt to kill themselves more. That may be the case, but it could also be that men don't admit when they have their failed suicide attempts. I could imagine a situation in a hospital bed where the doctor goes, John, mate, yeah, you've had 80 sleeping pills. What's going on there, mate? Yeah, nah, fucking missed a few nights of sleep, thought I'd catch up. Yeah, just trying to catch up on the sleep. Yeah, John, we found you in the garage. What's going on there, mate? Yeah, no, I was doing chin-ups in the garage, mate, trying to work the pecs and the bicep, And I got a bit tired, so I just put a rope around my neck just to relax. My car wasn't working. Yeah, so I thought I'd try to work out what's wrong with the car, and I put a hose into the window so I could smell the fumes. So I just thought I'd rev it to see what was wrong with the engine there. So there's lots of ways that men are disadvantaged as well, but we don't have this idea that men are living in some oppressive nightmare. 95% of all workplace deaths happen to men, right? 95% of workplace deaths happen to men. Recently, Lisa Wilkinson was complaining about how of the gender pay gap. She earned $1.8 million, and she complained about a colleague who earned $2 million. And she said that this was a case of discrimination. And I thought about this, and it's worth thinking about the whole pay gap thing. And I don't know if you people know, but there's this guy called Bill Gates, and he earns a lot more money than me. So that must be oppression, right? Like if Lisa Wilkinson was really interested in equality of outcomes, and she would focus on that statistic about 95% of workplace deaths are male, and maybe she would die in the workplace if she was really interested in that. But the ideology only has one causal explanation. Everything is based on oppression. So any phenomena that they see in reality is only because of oppression. There's no other explanation. They don't look for any other kinds of narratives. So the net income between men and women, they don't look for any other explanation that maybe women have different choices and priorities in life that change the amount of hours they can work if they choose to have children. Because they also like to believe that everything is a social construct, that everything is based around culture, and that there's no biological differences between men and women. And I think that's why in bird society, the birds that collect the blue shit to impress the female birds, they only do that because society has brainwashed them into acting patriarchal. So, but you apply this same kind of goofy thinking towards issues of racism and capitalism. Now, it's certainly true that historically the stolen generations happen, and I'm sure there's individual cases of racism, but they only look for the argumentation to prove that we live in some sort of racist society. They never go out of their way to try to look for evidence that maybe in modern Australia we're one of the least racist societies that have ever existed, because we have the highest ethnic diversity of any other country in the world. We're not all stabbing each other in the street. Yes, there'll be that viral video of a dude being racist on a bus screaming at someone. But what video never goes viral? Of the white guy sitting peacefully on the bus, not racially abusing anyone. Right? No one's like, oh, come look at that shit, Susan. Oh my God, the outrage. And so I started going into this subculture, and it was very exciting for me at the time, because we would squat, and that was an attempt to live out our politics. We started living in abandoned buildings and stuff, and I thought that was really cool at the time, because you know how cool it feels when you first illegally download a movie, you're pirating, you're like, yes! Well, I was illegally downloading houses, and that felt really cool, it felt special. But in hindsight, it was actually pretty stupid, because a lot of the places we were squatting, they were actually abandoned for good reason. They had mold or exposed asbestos. It would have been like squatting the abandoned ruins of a nuclear power plant. You go, oh, look at this place, Chernobyl. Yeah, we've got all this free space. Yeah, this is awesome. And we'd go into all these collective meetings and stuff like that, which would be these 2-hour epic sagas like Lord of the Rings. But when they got to the end of the collective meeting, you weren't looking forward to the sequel, you know, but like you did it because you felt like it was relating to your belief systems and that you're making a difference. Like I was going around putting up anarchist posters and propaganda and around the streets of Newtown, and I got to be creative in that, you know. I would have like, I would Photoshop the images of women's magazines, and I would have like a pregnant Kim Kardashian on the front, and I would say, baby bump, question mark, or is capitalism failing us? You know, I would do these kinds of things. And, you know, almost every week I would go to these rallies to support refugees or workers' rights or whatever. And at the time it felt like it was really meaningful, but on hindsight, I was basically doing like a left-wing version of a rain dance. Do you know what I mean? Just like thinking if we wave around the sign, then it will rain social justice. And so I kind of, this ideology also kind of gave me the narrative that my society was completely corrupted based only on oppression. And so I felt justified in engaging in being very rude to people and stealing. Like I was engaged in a lot of petty theft and stuff like that. And I thought I was like getting one over the man and all this shit, right? So Karl Marx said that religion was the opiate of the masses. Right, and perhaps it is. Maybe it does make people go to sleep. Well, I believe that Marxism is the crystal methamphetamine of the masses, because it takes you into a psychosis in which you think that stealing and murdering is really good. But in this cult, I started dating some really extreme feminists, and like that is not a good idea. Right, that is not a good idea. All right, that's like. As a guy trying to date an extreme feminist, it's like being a Jew trying to date a Nazi, right? Like when they invite you into the shower, you should not go in. You know? But it was amazing because of the identity politics of the cult kind of made me kind of believe that they were always the victim, right? And they always thought that they were winning some sort of power struggle by fucking us over. And like what I mean is like, so I was in one of these relationships and she used to hit me, and because I was a white man with all this privilege, I didn't see myself as a victim of abuse. You know, that first punch comes in, it's like first wave feminism, right? And you're kind of like, oh, I'm sorry you didn't have the right to vote, oh, you know, and then the second punch comes in and it's like second wave feminism. It's like, oh, sorry you didn't have equal opportunity. And then that third punch comes in and it's like, kind of running out of guilt here. I'm kind of running out of guilt. There's a lot of blogs being written. There's a lot of blogs. But the way I was in this anarchist subculture for about a year before I got involved in the anti-fascist side of things. This guy who was actually a rich kid from the North Shore, who I'll call Captain Anarchy, he came and you know, he was like, oh, we need to fight the fascists. We've got to stop the fascists. And see this scar on my head? I got it from fighting Nazis in Europe. And I was such a gullible, naive idiot at the time. I was like, oh, wow, oh. When in reality, he probably got it falling off the swing when he was 4 or whatever. And but because it's so hard to relate to your belief system of fighting against racism and sexism, you know, the spirits out there, to have a physical target is part of the reason why this Antifa thing is such a phenomenon, because they feel that they can relate to their goals if they go after. So I ended up picketing with him, organising a counter rally against the far right, the Australia First Party, and in that event I got arrested and charged with affray and assault, and I got a $500 a fine and a 2-year good behaviour bond. And I mean, on hindsight, that's not that bad of a thing. Like if you're drunk one day and you're scrolling through eBay, you know, and like you saw like punch a Nazi, $500, you'd kind of be like, maybe I can pay that off. But the issue is I didn't do anything to stop the far right. I gave them something to unite against, right? And like I'm pretty sure I didn't change that person's mind. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't know if you've ever changed your mind based on someone hitting you, but it's not usually a good way to win an argument. And but this was the grand narrative, and it made us feel important. So I came up to Brisbane and I organised a rally against the first Reclaim Australia rally, and you know, organised all these collective meetings, and I you know, rented out a PA, and I made sure we had a speakers list that ticked all the right identity boxes, and then, you know, we set up and we're basically just verbally abusing these other people, and then which, you know, wouldn't have done anything. Like, I think a debate or a conversation, you know, would have helped. But as I was there speaking and stuff, and had all these other speakers and had organised and put all this work into it, some woman who didn't attend any of the meetings was standing there, and she goes, "Oh my God, I can't believe that the white guy on the mic. You know, how disgraceful." And so I moved the mic away. I'm like, "Oh, would you like to say something on the mic? Would you like to say something?" And she's like, "No." That's the mindset of these people, right? They love complaining because it's that hit of instant gratification. And so this would happen a lot in these circles, this culture of denunciation. One example was this guy, Evan, who was a campaigner for gay marriage and all kinds of left-wing issues for about 10 years. And he was at a house party with some other social justice warrior who happened to be a transgendered Aboriginal blind woman. So she was the king of the victim hierarchy, or should I say non-binary ruler of the victim hierarchy. And someone had an epileptic fit at this party, and there was a disagreement over what to do about it. And instead of it being a disagreement between two adults, it became accusations of transphobia, racism and sexism, etc. And this person was kind of banned from the Anarchist Social Centre after that. And this was right when the Black Rose needed to get a new lease or move to another location. Instead of having any meetings about that, they had 5 fucking meetings about the guilt of this person. And they wouldn't allow them the right of reply because that would be giving a platform to racism. How fucking insane, right? And so this was sort of, this level of cannibalism and this culture of denunciation made me start to question the ideology. And so I made a video called White Male Commits Microaggression, which I put up. And basically in the video I made the point about how these narratives around white privilege, yes, maybe they make sense in some sort of general sense, but you can't judge the individual as, because you don't know their life. You know, and I kind of made the point that a lot of these people that attended the right-wing rallies were missing teeth. You know, what about tooth privilege? You know how big tooth privilege is in this society? Okay, do you know how many times a toothless person has the same job qualifications as a tooth person, and the job goes every time to the tooth person? Okay, that is disgusting bigotry. Okay, you think it's funny when Halloween comes around and you black out one of your front teeth and you go and black tooth face to the Halloween party. Shame be that. Shame. And so I made a video about that, and these were points in this video that other members of the radical left had agreed in private, that yes, this culture of denunciation is wrong and political correctness has gone mad, but yet the same people who agreed with me in private would publicly denounce me for making this video. And it was at that point that I realised that these people trade honesty for group membership. Right, and so they had set up their own micro-totalitarian society, and it was from there that I realised that the real battle between good and evil isn't between groups or classes. It's in the individual. It's right up and down the human heart, which is a quote from the book The Gulag Archipelago. And instead of being the change I wanted to see in the world, I was shaming other people to be the change I wanted to see in the world. You know, like, there's no point pointing out the corruption of, yes, the government's corrupt and whatever, but I'm corrupt. Do you know what I mean? I'm my own shitty corrupt government. I mean, has anyone ever tried to quit an addiction? You know, quit smoking or whatever? Like, you find ways of rationalising that behaviour. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm a corrupt government doing all kinds of shitty decisions, and that my consciousness is like rationalising it, like at the White House press conference, trying to rationalise the actions of a crazy president, where my subconscious is asking questions, going, excuse me, didn't you say that you were going to start going to the gym? Well, we are in a motivational recession at the moment, and as motivation increases, jobs will increase. Is it true that you spent the entire national budget on drugs and then masturbated? That is fake news, actually, that is fake news. That is incorrect. We're actually going to build a wall around the drug dealers, and we're going to make them pay for it. I'm going to make myself great again. You know, and this is the real struggle. This this Marxist narrative places the moral struggle outside of the individual. You know, like think about how hard it is to be honest in the moment, because lying is instant gratification. Do you people, when you have a friend who has food on their face, do you tell them?
Yeah.
Every time?
Yeah.
Bull fucking shit, right? There's been a time where you felt too awkward to tell them because you didn't want to be confronted with their vulnerability. Do you know what I mean? And so you kind of, oh, someone else will tell them or whatever, because it's easier to omit the truth in the moment, to not have a moment of discomfort often. But it's the right thing to tell them, you know? And like, I can't even tell my friends that they have food on their face. You know how people like to think if they were born in Nazi Germany that they would have been one of the good people helping the Jews? I can't even tell my friend he's got cheese on his face. There's no way I'm standing up to the Third Reich. You know, and this is the way ideology works, is it allows you to blame others for your problems. You know, for example, you have to wonder why people go into ideology and, you know, blaming the patriarchy or the Jews, you know, because it allows you to not have that responsibility for your own life. Like I was talking to this guy and it was like, oh mate, you know, the fucking Jews can't get a job in this country, it's the Jews, blah. And after a while I realised that the Jews were a metaphor for all his character flaws. So I started playing along with him. I was like, yeah man, yeah, I've got heaps of Jews too, you know, I'm always running late for things. The Jews, you know, oh, I got heaps of bills to pay. Yeah, the Jews are responsible for that. Yeah, I'm actually trying to become a better person. I'm actually hoping to have a Holocaust for all my Jews. I'm trying to find a final solution for all the Jews. These totalitarian ideologies allow people to have a sense of meaning and purpose in life. These grand narratives. And they are important. It is important what Trump and Putin is doing. It is important the plight of the refugees and indigenous people. These are all very important things. But you can lose yourself in these grand political narratives and forget the moral responsibilities you have for your own life. And these totalitarian ideologies can fill that void to distract you from those responsibilities. Like the other day I was walking down the street and there was this guy in an alleyway and he said to me, he's like, hey man, do you want some meaning? I was like, yeah, I want some meaning. How much you selling, bro? And so I followed him down the alleyway and he said to me, in your lifetime, you're going to have a meaningful interaction with 1,000 people in your life. And those 1,000 are going to have another meaningful impact on another 1,000. So you're 2 degrees of separation from 1 billion people, right? Because that 1,000 will have interaction with another 1,000. So everything you do, you take a step for the entire of humanity in that direction, is what this person said to me. Right, so that means when I smoke cones for the whole of humanity. One giant cone for Shane Hunter, one giant bucket bomb for mankind. You know, so you know, these ideological narratives are such a distraction. You know how people get really carried away with the Palestine-Israel conflict? Sure, it matters, but it, you know, like this woman was like, oh, I just go to all the rallies and blah blah blah. It's like, really, is that the big problem in your life? What's going on over there? Is that the big issue? Do you know what I mean? It's like, the thing is, it's like, well, what about the conflict between you and your own brother? Do you know what I mean? Or that family member you're estranged to, you know? Like, you know, this is just a way of escaping from those issues by focusing on this kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, people go, is it really about Israel-Palestine? People go, oh, you know, what Israel's doing to Palestine is wrong, and you know, Israel's downtrodden Palestine for too long, and when Palestine was 7 years old, Israel called Palestine faggot in front of his friends and wouldn't let Palestine play with the Xbox. But the thing is that there's no movement of people holding up signs telling you to take control of the issues in your life. No one's waving up a sign going, end the conflict with you and your brother. There's no one going to like your Facebook profile picture, you know, based on that important moral work you have to do in your own life. So there's no point people to do things when your life's a fucking mess, right? And that was the lesson that I learned through this experience. And most people don't have to join a cult to learn that. I had to learn that the hard way. But when you're a totalitarian, you kind of make a bet that the idea for change that you think is going to help everyone is certain. So you're kind of betting with everyone's life. You're going to the casino that this social policy change is going to help everyone. You're making that bet for everyone else's behalf. And a few people got that bet wrong, namely Hitler and Stalin, right? But when you make a decision in your own life to correct those to quit drinking or to be a better family member, at least you're betting with just your own life, so that's something I want people to take away. Is there any questions? Yep.
At what stage would you say you had your road to Damascus moment that made you switch from?
The road to Damascus moment was, like I said, when I made that video, White Man Commits Microaggression. After having so many conversations with people about how disgusting the culture of denouncement was in these circles, and they would agree privately, to see them vilify me publicly for making the video that they agreed with personally, and they all had my phone number and none of them bothered to call me, right? That was my moment where I'd seen a lot of hectic abuse and nonsense in the cult up to that point, and that was the moment where I went, fuck these people. Anyone else? Yep.
What took you all the way from deep Marxist all the way to libertarian?
Well, I want to say that I'm a pure libertarian, but what I like about libertarian is that they respect the sovereignty of the individual and they believe in freedom of speech, and the right to freedom of speech is also the right of independent thinking. And it also ties in with the message about taking responsibility for your own life, that idea of the focusing on the sovereignty of the individual. And because with Marxism, Marx was a person who I think was the original SJW, who was escaping in these grand political narratives. He was talking about, the alienation of the workers from the means of production. This is a man who had an illegitimate child he didn't raise. Okay, you know who else was alienated? Your child from their dad, right? But the way he would justify these things, like in the same way he justified being funded by a capitalist, his writing partner, Engels, owned a factory. And the way he justified that is he said, I'm not interested in individual capitalists, I'm interested in capitalists as a class. So you could imagine his kid being confused of why he wasn't there for him, and he would have been like, well, I'm not interested in children as individuals, I'm interested in children as a class. And so in the same way that we can escape our moral burdens through these grand social narratives, these same people will have smartphones, these anarchists, and expensive laptops. But it's okay for them to do it because it's not about them, it's about the system. So it's having the individual before the system, I think, is a big reason why I moved towards a more libertarian mindset.
Yeah. Just interested in some of the tactics that you guys would use. I guess most people would picture Antifa operating in, say, somewhere like Newtown or Brunswick. What kind of things would you employ to extend your reach and get your message out there, both on the ground and I guess in the cyberspace? Yeah,
so they would run sort of music gigs quite often. They would try and infiltrate subcultures. So they go to football games and they try to sell shirts that are in support of Sydney FC football soccer team, but also that has anti-fascist imagery, and they'll try to promote the anti-fascist subculture and existing subcultures. A similar thing happened with Gamergate. I think last year they were trying to say gamers against racism or whatever. And the thing is, these people aren't actually against racism. What they do is they do what the radical right wing do. The radical right wing, they take the mainstream value of the flag and the nation and they redefine what constitutes those mainstream values. And then they use that to have moral superiority over everyone. And the radical left-wingers do the same thing. They take the mainstream values of being against racism and sexism and redefine what constitutes them for unearned moral superiority and for a sense of meaning and purpose in life. So they'll claim that virtue of anti-racism, and people will pay attention and go, oh, I'm against racism, I care about that. And it's like a computer virus. I think one of the reasons the left-wing ideology has become most popularized through modern feminism right now. Right, and because people go, oh, I care about the plight of women, I care about that. And so that's the biggest tool of recruitment, is subverting mainstream values. It's sort of like a computer virus, because our brain is a biological computer. And you know, like on a porn site or a dodgy website, you'll have the internet ad pop up, you know, and it'll be like, oppressed MILFs in your neighborhood need your help to fight the patriarchy. And you'll click on that, and then you'll download the computer virus, and then you'll start spamming that into everyone's inbox, right? So they subvert mainstream values. That's the main way that they spread their toxic fucking ideology.
If that's such a problem, though, how do you expect in a democracy for people that have differing values to be able to express themselves?
Sorry, what is such a problem?
I mean, there's always going to be subversive cultures.
Yes.
Yeah, that's just the point I'd like to make. That's all. So. You know, like it's anyone that even clinging to libertarianism as an ideology, when ideology is a problem. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think people can get well. That's why I think that the focus on being an authentic individual, as opposed to hiding behind some ideological lens for your identity, is the solution to that problem.
Yeah. So that's a question. When you convert to libertarianism, did you ever see how similar both the alt-right and Antifa were in their outlooks and their ideological, global view?
Yeah, they both believe in violence. They both think because there's elements that are wrong with the status quo, that an anti-status quo position is automatically more ideal. And like I said before, they both subvert mainstream values and become the vanguard of them.
Do you see a shift, so when it comes to the public mainstream everyday people, do you see a shift away from like left-wing dogma, from SJW politics? Because I've noticed something with a fair few of my friends who are mostly left-wing. Over the years, they've sort of shifted away from these things where they won't want to seem to be identified with something that might seem like SJW related or left-wing related, but they'll still support certain aspects of that, but on the whole, they don't want to be associated with that just because of how crazy these movements have become.
I think that, so the question is, are they moving away? Are people becoming less like radical leftists? So I think that trend is on the way. I can't measure it, and I also know that we tend to perceive things based on the way our own mindsets are. So now that I'm no longer at SJW, I'm more likely to think, yeah, other people are over this shit, right? Surely. But I do think there's a trend away from it. I think it's stuff. I think that the radical feminists and social justice movement have had their Russian winter moment where they've extended too far, and now they're bogged down in the Russian winter.
On that topic, what are your mates back then doing? Like, what's your mate Evan, the rich kid from Sydney, doing?
What's he doing now?
Yeah, is he still in the movement? Or
he's still indoctrinated.
Right.
It's so hard to get out of it. It's really, really hard to get out of it, because that whole peer group is based on it. And you know the sunken cost fallacy, right? So the sunken cost fallacy is this thing where, like, you paid $10 for a shitty movie, you're halfway through it, and then you stay because you don't want to admit that that $10 was a bad investment. So these people have maybe put in fucking 5-10 years into this garbage, and they're like, no, we'll see this movie all the way through, we'll see what happens. So yeah, and the other aspect of it is, you know, there was this interesting thing I read about belief systems about in India. There was a Catholic shrine that a miracle started to happen where this shrine was crying. And a journalist came down from the city to investigate, and he was able to reveal that shrine, the tears coming from the statue was actually because of a broken toilet pipe, right? And I don't know how the locals didn't work that out, like every time they took a shit, oh, it's happening, oh, check it out. But, and so the journalist came down and he said that to the people, and guess how they reacted? They wanted to kill him, and he lives in exile now, because it implies that, that their whole community are idiots and fools, and not only are they wrong, their entire peer group is wrong, and the whole belief structure is ridiculous. And so the burden of admitting that truth is so difficult, it's easier to try and kill the person who, and I think that's part of the thing why we get so angry arguments about things we're passionate about. When you drive by in a car and you yell out to someone, hey, you fuckwit, right? It's nothing, you know, oh, he thinks I'm a fuckwit, whatever. But when you disagree with someone's core beliefs, you're trying to prove that they're a fuckwit. And that's way more threatening. So I think these people are sadly, a lot of the people who are very committed, they're stuck, and it's sad because I think they've got a lot more to offer the world than what they're doing.
How much of your own identity played into you sort of falling into that far leftist culture? Like did your perception of you being a white man, for example, like play a lot into you getting more and more wrapped up into that culture of like guilt and victimhood and that sort of stuff, or was that a part of many different?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I thought that, yeah, because I'm a white man, I had all this privilege and I have to listen to people regardless of their merits based on their identity. And I saw that would play out all the time in the cult with other people as well. So what they do is they don't transcend racism or sexism. They become irrational and resentful of people who they think are in the oppressor group, and they become sycophantic towards people that they are in the victim groups. So, you know, say an Indigenous person, you know, comes into that group or whatever, they'll treat them with a completely different moral standard, which is actually a form of racism. Yeah, so another question? Yep.
Has the old group ever chased you down, or
sorry?
They just ignored you basically now?
What was the question?
People you were involved with, have they come after you if you change your beliefs since then, or have they just ignored you?
Yeah, I got punched by communists about 2 weeks ago. Two more questions today? Or?
Yeah, you go.
All right. Yeah. They harass me. They target my events. They when I run comedy shows, they send messages to the venue saying that I'm a racist, sexist, transphobic, homophobic, women-abusing, far-right wing supporter. And they try and shut down my venues with that, and they send me threats and stuff, and I have been physically assaulted by them. Yeah, so they really don't like me. Another question? Yep.
One thing I've been thinking of in this sort of culture we're coming to, where there is sort of starting to be a pushback against political correctness and far leftist ideologies, is that the importance of ourselves not falling into sort of a victim mentality because of that. And I think that's something that might need to be sort of talked more about, that it would be very easy in that sort of pushback against the culture to fall into that mentality and sort of fall also into a very...
Well, I think that's what the alt-right is a reaction to the whole identity politics game, where they're like, okay, I'm a white man, well, we're in a war now, I'm going to win. You know, so that's that mindset. So it's easy to fall into the same mindset of the whole victim narrative thing. And we're not, everyone's a victim, you know? And this is why the social justice morality is so primitive compared to any of the great traditions. Like Buddha said that the only thing that universal is suffering. He didn't say the only thing that's universal is suffering unless you're a straight white man. You know, like Moses didn't come down from the mountains and said that the thou shall not offend. Any other questions? Yep.
Yeah. How well funded and organised was the whole operation? It put forward a pretty good mask, but if you peel it back, is there those George Soros funded conspiracy theories that they really exist?
I think George Soros probably throws money around in media landscapes, but in terms of the grassroots and stuff, it's their biggest funder is actually the government, Centrelink. They're self-motivated lunatics, yeah.
We might draw to a close.
All right, yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope that was somewhat entertaining and or gave you some insight into ideology and how the radical left operates. There's a lot more to my experiences and my ideas and analysis on ideology. I'm hoping to write a book called The Safe Space Archipelago, which is a nod to a very famous book called The Gulag Archipelago, which is thought to be the main book that articulated the oppression that happened during the Soviet Union. Here's a quote from it. "If only it were all so simple. If only there were evil people somewhere insidiously committing evil deeds, and it were necessarily only to separate them from the rest of us and destroy them. But the dividing line between good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being, and who is willing to destroy a piece of his own heart?" But before I'm able to write this book, I'm actually doing a stand-up comedy show at all the comedy festivals this year called Blaze Against the Machine, which is mainly focusing on addiction, because I believe the same difficulties to delay instant gratification and to do what's aimed at our highest calling, which isn't substance abuse, is the same process of battling between good and evil inside of yourself. And I can't regulate my own behavior anywhere near as much as I would like to. And because of that, I have no right to go out there and demand that society be radically restructured like I used to be when I was a far left-wing ideologue. So maybe keep an eye out for those comedy shows if you're interested in that. If you're interested in me making fun of ideology, I made a video series called The Radical Centrist, which you can see on my Facebook and YouTube channels if you just search for Shayne Hunter, comedian. And also I'd like to thank Andrew Cooper from the Liberal Democrats for inviting me to speak. I had a great time. Thanks for watching. See yous.